So, thanks guys for taking the time out to join us. Before we start the conversation, can each of you briefly introduce yourselves?
Yeah.
I'm Ganesh Kumar. I'm 49 years old from Coimbatore, South India, Tamil Nadu. I've lived half my life here, half my life in the US, and now I'm back in Coimbatore. I got into trail running about maybe 8 years ago. But I do some cycling other than that, and that's it.
And I'm Damian Watson. I'm 39 years old and based in New Zealand, Aotearoa, and I love running. I've been trail running for a few years now, but I was lucky enough to go and do an event in the Himalayas a few months ago, and that's really been one of the best experiences I've had running. So looking forward to talking about it.
I'm Chetan. I'm also 39. We'll be turning 40 this year. I've been into running space and the outdoors for over a decade and a half. I love running. I've been organizing races in the Himalayas for 10 plus years, ultras and trails. And, got this opportunity with BNC to organize some amazing trail running events. Since the last 3 years, we have been at it, trying to find new trails, trying to grow the sport in India. Still is in sort of the infancy sort of stage, slowly growing, people coming in. So excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I am Neeti. I know nothing about trail running. I'm only just entering this sport and learning from all of you. So it's been exciting being part of the races that you guys run and watching you run and getting inspired. It's taking up the sport slowly in my local area. So yeah, looking forward to what lies ahead. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited about this conversation because Ganesh and Damon, you were part of the two athletes who said yes to the first edition of Ladakh Trail to Heaven, which is a 100-mile race all above 3,500 meters, which is truly first of its kind. And Chetan, you were the organizer for the entire race, so you know the ins and outs of the entire race, right? Damien, when you hear Ladakh now, since it's been quite a bit, when you hear Ladakh now, what's the first sensation that comes back to you?
Well, it was definitely the most exciting and biggest challenge that I've undertaken as a trail runner. When I hear it now, I just have like fond memories. Of course, at the time, there was definitely some very low points in the race, as there is with most 100 miles, but the whole experience, the adventure, the Himalayas, the culture, getting to meet other amazing athletes and, the people that organize it. Yeah, whenever I hear Ladakh, I'm smiling and I'm always reminiscing about what an experience that was for sure.
Ganesh, does that resonate with you or do you think of it differently?
Yeah, I would agree with what Damien said. It's the whole terrain is different in Alay and Ladakh, and that was interesting for me. Yeah, definitely the food, the people, also a little bit of unfinished business in my case. So yeah, I would love to come back and finish it and see the rest of the course.
Chetan, what about you? It was you've done organized races in Ladakh before, but I'm sure that none of them were trail races. This was the first long distance trail race that was organized in Ladakh. How do you look back on it, and what do you take away from that for the coming year?
I think it was incredible. So I remember doing a recce for this route back in 2014, 10 plus years back. Back then, I was doing it with someone who was organizing a lot of stage races in Nepal, and idea was to do it as a stage race. So, but we wanted a longer distance. We wanted like a 200 plus kilometers where you're covering, let's say, for 50, 60 kilometers a day, probably within the daylight, and then resting for the night, and then carrying on forward. That did not work out then. To do it as a non-stop race was a challenge. When you're throwing someone in the high altitude, where things can go south pretty quickly. You have stations set apart, and then you have some rescue teams, but still there could be some delay in the response and stuff. So, it was like you want to really make sure that things are settled and kind of watertight. So we know who's where and how the movement plan and stuff. So in terms of, logistics, it was a lot more work than I've ever done. Doing things on the road is just simple. You have vehicles and you're following stuff, and it's easy. Even on the trails that we do in the Summit Run series, the distances are shorter. For us, it's the aid stations are much tighter, 2-3 kilometers, and some courses are out and back, some are like circuits and stuff. We know the phone works, network works. That's the best, So you can
Correct.
communicate, you can find out what's happening. Over here, everything was a challenge. So communication, you were in a black spot. Trackers, we didn't have, right?
Say sorry about why we didn't have the trackers. You want to get into
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's another whole story. I think that's going to take another Zoom call for that. And we'll have to have Joao for that also, just to share what his experience was with the trackers.
Yeah.
So that we didn't have, We saw out of 7 runners, 3 were not in a good shape in terms of altitude, Putting that into practice and coming out on the other hand with a fairly successful event, having a finisher and everyone back safe, alive. I think that was my biggest. But the biggest thing was more than a finisher. I was like, I want everyone back safe, and everyone should be kind of accounted for, even the team members on the ground, because they are the ones who were on the move constantly for as much time and effort as these guys were in a way. So having that done was like a very, very amazing sort of a thing to go through.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed being a small part of that team as well and seeing how it works. And, it was a lot of work. For 7 runners, we had around 70, a crew of 70, right? Which is quite a big crew. I'm curious to know, Damien and Ganesh, from you. Chetan spoke about his experience as a organizer, right? Both of you have run globally and internationally in different kinds of terrains. For Ladakh, especially, we had a 1 week acclimatization period, but even so, every runner sort of struggled in their own way. What do you think was different about the Himalayan terrain that you don't experience anywhere else?
Yeah, I think the altitude was just a complete game changer. So I've thought about it in the weeks and months since I completed it. And I think the thing with the altitude is it doesn't discriminate. You could be the fittest person in the world or the unfittest person in the world, but you don't know how it's going to affect you. That was something that attracted me to the whole adventure of the Trail to Heaven. I wanted to see how I would handle it. I wanted the challenge. And I have to say, when I arrived on the first day, I got to the accommodation, which was lovely, and I decided to go for a walk. And I was walking up the hill and I was just like on my knees, like so gassed, like struggling to breathe. And I thought, this is not going to be possible. Like, what have I done? I've made a huge mistake. But thankfully, we had a good kind of acclimatization program. And with each day, I felt more confident that it was possible. But of course, it's one thing to be able to do a short run and to work your way up to higher distances, but to complete 100 miles, that was something that was completely unknown, I think, for all of us, obviously. Yeah, I don't know how much to get into it now, but like throughout the race, it started to affect me more and more, to the point where I wasn't sure if I was going to finish. And at one point in my mind, I had made up that I was going to pull out of the race. But luckily, I got a little pep talk from one of the other athletes, Rao, and he encouraged me to keep moving. And I got to see some of the amazing crew, and I slowly keep moving. But yeah, it was definitely the biggest challenge in terms of my running career. Even just to get across the finish line, I didn't care about a podium. I didn't care about, the time. I was just to finish it. That was it was amazing because there was definitely a good amount of time where I didn't think I would. Yeah, it was the altitude was something that I will never take for granted living at sea level. That's for sure.
You were leading for half of the race, like you were in first position till the halfway mark, and that changed pretty quickly after I think kilometer 100 once the sun went down, and then it became a little bit more challenging. Was it the temperatures you think that shifted?
So it was a combination of things. We got to the highest point in the whole race. And I think up until that point, I'd been feeling okay. But I think the altitude definitely started to take effect because we had made the second mountain pass over 5,000 meters. And then when we descended through a gorge, which was about 8 kilometers. And that was quite challenging because we had to do a lot of river crossings. Thankfully, the course was marked really well with the orange arrows from the Sherpas. Without that, I would have been in some trouble. But I think, the temperature was not such a factor for me because I don't mind the cold, But what was the factor was the cumulative effect of the altitude. I think the river crossings, because I really damaged my feet quite badly because I was not lifting my feet, I was kicking rocks. So I remember getting into the aid station and I got to see all of you, but I was really feeling a bit unsure about how I would progress. But I took my time. I had something to eat. I actually tried to sleep there, but I couldn't. And then I decided, look, I'm just going to keep going. And probably about less, maybe like 3 kilometers after the aid station, which was, I think, at about 90 kilometers, I started to second guess myself. And my mind was playing tricks on me. And, I thought I was maybe having bigger issues than I actually was. And so I decided to stop. And I waited for Rahul because, as you know, as Titan pointed out, there's no reception. So I couldn't contact anyone. And because the unfortunate situation with the trackers, no one knew exactly where I was. So I started to get a bit worried. But then I waited for Rahul, and he actually walked with me for a little bit. And, he kind of helped me keep moving. And then I told him, look, keep going. You're looking strong and I don't want to hold you up. And then I progressed. But I would say from about the halfway point through to the end, that was sort of when the real race started for me. The first 80 kilometers, I actually felt quite good. And I was like, look, making good time. And then it just, became, I guess, survival. Just try to get to the finish line.
You know what the pep talk Rao gave you was, which worked so wonderfully.
I think he basically was like, he was like, hey, you've done 80 kilometers already. What are you going to do? Stop now? It's like, just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And you know what Raoul's like. You all know Raoul. He's very much like, he tells you how it is. So he told me what I needed to hear, and it was greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
So,
you're here to do it and you got to do it. That's his mantra.
Yeah, exactly.
knowing Ashwath, he probably said something like, keep moving, loser.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and maybe even some words I won't say on the video.
Yeah, we already know the word. So, Ganesh, you had to drop out of the race. You decided to drop out of the race at the halfway mark at the Makha aid station.
Right.
You want to take us through what happened up until the race and how you came to that decision?
Yeah, so I guess I had decided to drop out. So there was the first climb, which was close to 5,000 meters, right? So after that, the descent, I love descents normally, but during the descent, I was still disoriented, and I was feeling like the rocks were not in the right place where they were supposed to be. When when I saw them and then I jumped, it seemed like the terrain was moving a little bit, and that was getting to me. I also didn't have as much practice and volume when I came to the race. So that was always in the back of my mind. So I had this worry, and having this happen to me added on to it. I tried, so I had done some acclimatization even before our program started. I did some climb before our program. And I think that was also another mistake, because I came to Ladakh, and within the first 3 days, I climbed a 6,000-meter peak, and I had some like a swelling in my wrist. And so I had a couple of worries that were in my head. And when I had this happen to me, it just accelerated. So on the whole downhill, I was thinking, okay, I was debating to myself, should I quit or should I, somehow try to keep going? But I was also worried about, Damien said he's not worried about cold, but I am worried about cold. I live in a place where 35 degrees centigrade is normal. Being in Ladakh, I was worried if I'm at one of the 5,300-meter peaks and in midnight and it's like freezing cold, how am I going to handle it with all the water crossings? So this is what was going through in my mind. The thing that was surprising for me was I had come prepared for my lack of training with my mindset and the cold also, because I had brought enough layers, but I wasn't prepared for the heat or the sun. Because I didn't think, when you think of being in India, all the Ladakh videos and everything I've seen is snow mountains, till now. So, and I think that's where people go for tourism during winter time, and so there is snow everywhere. But I never thought the sun was going to be that bad. The sun was bad. I realized I was getting dehydrated at within the first 30 kilometers even. So I was fixing that, but then the first peak came quicker, like before I had got over that hump. So yeah, so these were my issues and things. And given that the race was a very small race, we had seven of us who started running, it was worrying. Like I was afraid that if I'm out alone at, like, how Damien was saying that, like, we don't have signal, we don't know the area, we are not being tracked. So that fear was playing in my head too.
Do you regret that decision? I remember asking you that time and you were pretty sure and you were glad that you took that decision. In retrospect, do you feel differently?
I think, given everything that was happening, given my lack of training, I think that was definitely good. I mean, I keep questioning every time I think about the race. I keep questioning whether that was the right decision. Like, we all do that, right? Like, I've had a few DNFs in my life, not so many, but just a couple. And every DNF, I would think that I could have done it, right? I could have, but I would have been in a really bad shape if I had pushed through. And because I saw how Damien was, I saw how Shashwat was, I would have been in a bad shape given my training volume. So I was happy to take a shower, take a nap, and then come see them and congratulate them the next day.
You were,
I would
sorry.
like to go. Yeah, so I would like to come do it again, but because the course seemed lovely, everything was awesome, and the challenge it's a really nice challenge to go
Yeah,
do.
for sure. Sure. And it went really smoothly. For a first edition, it went perfectly well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Chetan, you know the route and you knew the challenges going into this when you were setting the route. And what were your expectations from the first edition? Do you have any numbers in mind? Oh, I anticipate that there'll be these many finishers, or these will be the challenges that we'll run through. Anything that you had in mind before the race started?
Other than the safety part, so when I did the recce, this was a couple of years back. So, I mean, we were supposed to do this race 24, which didn't happen. So I had completed the recce by June of 2024. And when I presented the file, the GPX and the whole route to Joao, I said, based on your understanding of how you design the cutoffs in terms of the stations and stuff and all, you see based on the profile what works out. Now, he has obviously not been in the high altitude. So 36 hours when he kind of gave that number, I already had my apprehensions about it. But I said, okay, well, let's start with that. But I think back of the head, we had it in mind that, okay, this is like an edition 0 when we're testing. This is like a test phase. These were literally like test drivers or test pilots flying a brand new aircraft, which we don't know whether it will land or not. So they were the ones testing it out. So for us to kind of take that feedback and then shift, that was more of a thing. So my expectation was that once the race on the acclimatization, when I saw Ganesh and Damien and Shashwat, I think that day was not running, but Sandra, Francesca, Oliviero, they were all running up the Gondala when we had that trip, when we went to Rumbak and we were doing the acclimatization. Everyone was looking super, super fit. Everyone just did amazing. Damien was climbing another mountain of his own. Ganesh was running up in Gandhala. So I was like, okay, this looks like we're going to have a good race. It's going to be exciting. But I guess maybe the race day jitters or the race day effort is something else. And also the fact that you're getting to that point when you've already crossed 30, 35 kilometers in the course before. So you are climbing the mountain with some fatigue. So there were a lot of unknowns. So it was very difficult for me, even after having seen these guys acclimatize, to actually try to forecast or predict what's going to happen. So it was very difficult. For me, I was just constantly thinking, connecting with my safety teams and the station teams and making sure that everything else is in place. If we kind of deliver and work on the plan, we'll know that things will go fine. And that's how I guess things were slowly moving ahead till I met Ganesh when I was at that point. I was coming to Markha. He was coming down the Gandala. He said, stop by the car. He said, I'm not feeling well. Okay. I said, okay, you're close to the main rest stations. Continue ahead, take a call there, rest for a bit. You have good time. Everyone was making an amazing cutoff. So nobody was coming on right just on the cutoff. Everyone has good 2 hours plus in buffer, right? So they had ample time. So someone would have rested. But I think, yeah, it's all the thought of you're on a trail, you're not on a road. So, and then going through the night, all of those factors you don't keep it. And I think Ganesh made a very important point that being in the Himalayas, you think, yeah, everything is above high altitude, so it's going to be cold. But heat is something that very few people account for. Leh Ladakh being the area that is like a cold desert, you know that the temperature variation and the radiation will be very high. So you have to prepare for elements that you probably have never experienced before. So this is Ladakh is going to throw that at you. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. The temperature variance was quite huge. Have you guys experienced that anywhere else? Like the afternoons being so hot, but the nights being so cool.
I'm thinking, and I don't think so because yeah, Ganesh and Titan, they're correct. Like it was hot, like hotter than I thought it was going to be. And I remember after the first mountain pass, like Ganesh was mentioning, we went down the hill. And then there was quite a long road section, and I really got quite dehydrated there. I underestimated because I'm not someone necessarily that I'm not a big sweater, so I don't have to worry about my hydration as much as other people, and I don't have to worry about my sodium. So maybe that sometimes leads into a false sense of security because I remember I definitely got quite dehydrated, and I don't cramp normally ever in races. That's the only race where I've actually started to cramp from being dehydrated. And when I got into the aid station after making the second mountain pass going through the gorge, I remember I ate about 3 or 4 salt tabs. So the heat caught me off guard. But for me, the temperatures, I'm from a cold place. So when it got to the night, I actually didn't mind the cold. Like I know Sandra, she really struggled with the cold being from Costa Rica. But I would say I would struggle with the heat more than the cold. But one thing that was quite unusual was the kind of extremes of the heat to the cold. But I have to also mention I actually felt really safe throughout because we did have an amazing team there. I remember after Raul gave me my little pep talk, I think you and some of the other boots and crampons team, they actually drove behind me for like a couple of kilometers to make sure that I was feeling okay because I was a little bit worried in my head. And the Sherpas were amazing. And, obviously the tracking system, if we had that, it's a different story. But because of the way things unfolded with Joao, and that was just a very unfortunate situation. But overall, I felt very safe, even with the kind of extremes of the weather, the altitude. So in the end, I think that was one of the reasons why I was able to continue and keep going because I did have that kind of, feeling of safety and the safety net of having the team there or thereabouts following along. But yeah, I mean, I can't compare the change in the weather to any other race that I've been a part of. It's normally, pretty hot throughout or cool and then gets colder, not the extreme.
Right.
I
Same
think
for you.
I was going to say, like, I've been to Badwater, not to the race, but the place. And, maybe it comes a little close because it gets
Yeah, you would think.
hot. But then I was in a car, took pictures and got back in. So, that's a whole different thing.
Right. So all three of you have pretty extensive experience in trail running. Anisha said that you started around 8 years ago. I mean, you've been in it for a couple of years. Chetan's been in it for a decade and a half. Right? And you've run just now you got podium on the 100 final in Brazil, which was a completely different terrain and 200 miles at that. So the distance was double that. And Ganesh, you just ran the TMB Thailand and a couple of other local races after that, right? I wanted to take some time to go back to the beginnings. How did you discover trail running?
For me, I was a cyclist and I was cycling for fun. And at one point, I started cycling for fitness because I was getting fat. But I didn't like running. Running seemed very boring for me. But a friend who started following me, well, a guy who started following me on Strava became a friend through Strava and invited me to come try trail running. And I said no. He said, well, we're going to be doing trail running here, but why don't you come hike with us? Because we're going to be at the same place. And I love hiking. So I said yes. And then I think they were taking it easy that day and they were just going slow. And, I was just hiking fast and we were at the same speed. So it was, and coming downhill was fun. And it was a technical trail. I think the course would have been part of the Western States, but I was just living near the area, so we went there. And I was really loving it. And at that time, he was talking about how he had wanted to go to Grand Canyon and do the rim to rim to rim, which is an 80-kilometer run, but you have to do it, I mean, unsupported. All you might get is water along the way and nothing else. And so you carry in and whatever you need. And that, since I never got down the Grand Canyon and I've always wanted to do it, and that seemed like, it was very exciting for me. So, yeah, I just, and, this guy, he was so encouraging and motivating. Shashank from California. So he got me, he's like, oh, you're a natural runner, you need to like sign up for this, you need to like do this. So I just like signed up for all kinds of races, got injured, sure. I learned my lessons, but then yeah, so that's how I got into trail running. It's just
Yeah, you always that one friend.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I feel like with other things, like you don't get to see, like with cycling, I get to see cities and I cycle around cities. But with trail running, you get to see nature in the mountains, usually places that are so lovely but are hard to reach. But race organizers find these beautiful places for us and give us food and support and help if we need on the way. And what better way to go find this, right? Like if I have to go find the trails in Ladakh and do it on my own, it would take me like months of research. And then still, like I won't have the support along the way, right? Like it would be like, maybe a week-long excursion or a 2-week-long excursion, and we don't have that much time. I think doing it a little faster is a lot of fun too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually found trail running during COVID. So I always played sports growing up. I did some running when I was younger, more short distance stuff at it, 800, 1500 meters. But in 2021, my friend came to me and said, hey, I'm doing the Auckland Marathon. He didn't actually invite me to come do it, but I was like, okay, I'm going to do it too. And I did the Auckland Marathon, which is a road marathon, and I loved it. I had no idea what I was doing. I think I ate one banana in 42 kilometers. I was broken by the end of it, could barely walk. But something flicked, and I loved the event. I loved the community and the camaraderie. In 2022, a friend signed up for a ultra marathon in the west coast of New Zealand, and it was 54 kilometers. And I remember we went down there, we booked an Airbnb, we went out for dinner, and then we did this run, and I just immediately fell in love. I was like, see you later, road marathons. This is what I want to do, trail running, because I'm someone that's always been an extreme person in my life, and sometimes that's led me down a bad path. And this is something that's very much led me down a good path. I've always been an adrenaline junkie. I've always liked to challenge myself, see what I'm capable of. So that 54-kilometer race, which, I finished, was the stepping stone. And then from that point onwards, I was pretty much like Ganesh said, I was signing up for anything I could, and I was increasing the distance each time. And, then I started to hear about these 100-mile races, these 200-mile races. Like Ganesh said, for me, one of the biggest things is I like the adventure. I like to see new places, and especially I love running in mountains. When I heard about the Trail to Heaven and the Ladakh region, the Himalayas, the altitude, the challenge, I was like immediately like, I want in on this. No matter what, I want to be there. So, it's been a short career, I would say, compared to some other people, but I have thrown myself in 100%, and I can't see that changing anytime soon because, I just love it and I can't wait. All I'm thinking about is more events and what I can book and how I can set out my season. So, I truly love it. And the adventure, the nature, meeting people and seeing new places is, I'm very lucky to do it.
Chetan, they've found trail running in different places, but in India, it's still finding its feet, right? But you sort of got into it a decade ago. How did you sort of discover it within the Indian landscape where, just road running was just coming up at that time? I think TMM was happening and monies were being poured into road running, and that became a big scene. But trail running, even today, is not there yet.
I think trail I actually got into around the COVID time in 2020 exactly, if I remember. Earlier, I was more into organizing road races and running road, but I always knew about trail. I knew because that was the time when UTMB and Solomon was coming up with a lot of content. So Europe was kind of buzzing with a lot of activity. Kilian Jornet was he still does amazing things what he does, but that time he was like at the peak of his racing days, So following them, I kind of knew what trailing was. Training for me actually happened when I got to meet. So there's this group in Delhi called Capital Trails, and we have kind of mapped out about 120 kilometers of trails in and around Delhi. And I think as per, we people in Delhi, we are lucky to have access to so many trails just inside and around the city, which a lot of other cities, bigger major metropolitans in India don't have that access. So I got to know by this guy, Nakul, who met me on one of the Sunday runs we were running on the road. And he said, okay, we are heading out next Sunday on this trail in starting from Bangalore to Damdama and back. It's going to be around 25 kilometers or something. It's how one of the runs. We've started group trail running, exploring. Would you like to join? And I said, yeah, let me. That time I didn't even have any trail shoes, so I just went with my road shoes, and I took my hydration pack. This was September, and September is like the monsoons are tapering off, but it's still very hot and humid, right? So I didn't have idea of the fueling and the hydration bit, what I need to do and what I'm getting into. And the very first experience was itself like you're scrambling up a very steep hill through the rocks on all fours, cutting through big thorny bushes that are piercing through cutting your skin, damaging your shoe, breaking my bladder almost got pierced. My hydration pack was slashed because in Delhi NCR I've seen the trails. There you have these. It's like a what do you call it? Semi-arid sort of a place, right? It's connected to the Thar Desert in a way, Aravallis. So you have these bushes, small bushes with big thorns, and they can best of the best trail running shoes don't stand a chance here. Like they can pierce through the rock plate, and they can. I had a friend who had a thorn puncture the shoe and then go inside the feet and then get the shoe stuck inside. Luckily, it didn't hit the bone. So and then they had to like just rip off the shoe from the feet. So that has happened. So I was getting through all that with my road shoe. Had snakes and all those encounters, and we went halfway, and then we came back. So that took half a day. Navigating through, we were getting lost and all of that. But that whole experience, it was just completely draining. But that made me feel so alive, like just so. And it was like I was barely running. I was like it was more of hike and a walk and a navigation, and then a bit of run, and then hike and walk and navigate, course correct, come back, take out the thorn, clean your blood, all of those things, get up, get going again.
So you almost died and you were like, you came back, I almost died. I'm gonna do this again.
Almost drained, completely drained. And then we had to, I always had that in mind because the climb that we went up, the scramble, I said, okay, we'll have to come back again through the same. I said, coming down will be harder. So what we did was because we were following the same track, we somehow missed that particular spot where we came up from, and went down the other way, and that was much more steeper. So it was a different sort of a rock climbing, descending sort of an exercise. And but yeah, I came out alive, and I was like, man, this is what trail running can offer you. I'm game. I would go for it. So and since then, I've been part of the core team. We meet every once a month. Some of us who are training for trail races meet much more regularly. We go out and kind of because trails around in Delhi NCR we still have wildlife. We have leopards, so it's not entirely safe to go. There's a lot of wildlife, so yeah, we kind of try to come together, grow this over here.
So you spoke about how there was this one person or this one experience that tipped you over into getting into the sport, right? Ganesh, you were known within the Indian trail running scene for, naturally being very welcoming to newcomers just by your mentorship and your presence, your love for the sport. How important do you think the local running scene is to introduce more people to the sport?
I think it plays a big role. But every like personalities are different. I know people who build the social aspect of things. They build a community where they make sure that newcomers feel welcome a lot more, and they do events to bring people in. I am not that as much. I like running on my own too. I like being alone in the mountains too, or maybe just with like a couple of friends. But I respect people who are able to do this and who love and get people together. And so I'm happy to take people who are first timers with me and show them what I know, and kind of like when I see them doing certain things, I correct them a little bit just to give advice. But I don't like go seek out this, right? Like because I need to have my own ways to recharge or whatever in life and just go do my thing. I think the communities are super important because without, like, especially in places like India, to I mean, gender, we have gender discrimination issues here, right? Like women coming into the sport is super hard. And even the safety wise, it's hard to get to have a woman. Like I know I have the privilege of just running wherever I want at whatever time I want. And women don't have that. And without a community, they don't have that opportunity, unfortunately. I mean, I wish it changes, but it is what it is, right? So we do have to have that network, and we have to make, I think, races. I've heard one of my friends say this in, I think, in one of the Capital Trail interviews. Some of the races, trail races, are now advertising that this is like the hardest thing, you will not finish it. And I think for people who are getting in, it's more, it feels like they are saying, now you won't be able to do it, right? I understand that
Yes.
this is a challenge for experienced runners, and it's for me to think like I'm gonna go do this. If somebody tells me that I can do it, that's when I think that I can do it or I want to do it. But it's not necessarily welcoming for newcomers. And I think we should also see that aspect of things. I think I kind of answered your question because I lost track of what the question was, but yeah, it did.
As a newcomer, right, as someone who's still exploring the sport, I agree with what you're saying. If you make everything sound too elite or too extreme, that sort of becomes a stopgap for anyone who's trying to experience something new, or open gates to something new. So
Like, I mean, and also, unlike what Damien said, right? Damien had been into sports since when he was a kid, but I haven't. I mean, I've been cycling, but other than that, and it was never a sport for me. It was just to get away from home and like, go to my friends' places maybe. I was never into sports until I was 40 years old. So if it seemed hard for me to get in, I would have never got in. So
right.
somebody made it easy for me to get in. And somebody said, this is nothing, like if I can, and this is what I've been saying to anyone and everyone I meet, is that if I can do it, I'm sure you can do it and you will do it better.
Does that align with what the trail running scene is like in New Zealand for you, Damien?
Well, I would say the trail running scene in New Zealand is pretty well established. So obviously, as you've all mentioned, it's sort of a newer thing in India. But in New Zealand, there's a really big culture, not necessarily around trail running, but around hiking. And in New Zealand, we're very lucky because we have an incredible, extensive, well-maintained network of trails all throughout the country. We have these things called the Great Walks, which are considered some of the best walks in the whole world. And, we have huts that you can stay at when you're hiking it, but it's booked out 6 months in advance. But everyone has access to it in New Zealand because we have national parks, and it's sort of seen as like a God-given right that you can go hiking and explore the trails and the natural landscapes in New Zealand. And with that culture, we have very much a big trail running community all throughout the country. I actually agree with Ganesh. Like, I'm someone that I love the running community, but I also really like going off on my solo adventures. I like to do fast packing adventures where I'll be maybe 4 or 5 days on my own with everything I need in a pack. So it's a bit bigger, but I'm running. But I love the community. That was something that brought me in. So we have a lot of big events in New Zealand, but we have a lot of grassroots events. And I particularly enjoy the grassroots events because you see all walks of life. You see, relatively elite runners to beginners. And everyone is super supportive, and it's always interesting for me because, people within my community, they know that I've run 100-mile races, 200-mile races. And, for them, that seems completely crazy. And they always come up to me and they're like, oh, I only ran 10 kilometers the other day, which always really annoys me because it's all relative. I'm like, if you get out for a 5K run, you're getting out and you're doing it. You're doing it on the road or you're doing it on the trails. I love that. So I think, yeah, in New Zealand, we have a very inclusive running community and everyone sort of, wants everyone to do their best. And where I live, I actually live in Auckland, which is the biggest city in New Zealand, but I live not in the city. I live in a small community out by the beach. It's actually not really part of Auckland, but we started a run club out here. It's called the Muriwai Sea Slugs. Long story, don't ask me why, but we're quite different because we actually do trail running. A lot of the run clubs, they might be in a city and it's on the road, but out here we have a trail running club And we get people coming out from the city and they just love doing something different and being out on the trails. And we actually, well, I own a cafe with some friends and we start and finish at the cafe. So, quite often we will do an evening one and we come back here and we'll open up the bar and people can have a drink, whether it be alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and they all get to talking. And then we've seen a lot of them book events together. And yeah, I think one of the things that definitely attracted me to it was the community and the atmosphere. Obviously, at the top level, it can be pretty cutthroat, pretty elite, and that's completely fine. But I find that these grassroots events really community driven, and there's such a positive, uplifting environment and atmosphere for everyone, whether you be there to win it or you're doing your first half marathon. So I really do love that about the sport.
Yeah, given that you have started a run club which is inviting for all classes or difficulty levels of people, and Ganesh, you welcome newcomers to join the sport. Then you as an organizer, we are trying to build a series of races which sort of balances both categories for elite runners as well as newcomers. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we as the existing community can do to invite more people into the sport?
I think one thing definitely is to kind of listen to people, what they are saying, like the feedback matters around the trails, or let's say, I mean, we started the similar way. Like when we started with the first Indrahar, we had people coming from the road racing background more, because trail running, doing the first time in the Himalayas. And Indrahar is challenging, 30K, Ganesh has done, and asked him how difficult it is in terms of the technicality, at least. So, when we kind of heard them on the feedback stuff and everything, and then I said, okay, there will be things that are tougher. So we just need to kind of present the information much better, so that helps people understand what to choose, what not to choose. It should not sound like, because I've done a full marathon, then this is 30K, I'll be able to do 30K. You should learn what elevation gain is, what terrain is. So we were trying to, also it was the first edition, so we didn't have a lot of content on stuff. We had done the recce, but we didn't have a runner. So it takes time to kind of, listen, but you have to take that feedback from the community, make it more enabling, make it more easier for people who think it's a challenge. Like for a lot of women, for example, it would be, will I have access to clean bathrooms on the way? If else I have to go, some are not comfortable using natural spaces around the trails. So you have to give all of those options and points for people to kind of come and say, okay, yeah, those things are kind of being taken care of. And this is something that, will be safe. Safety is another, I think, big aspect of trail running. So accessibility and safety are two big aspects. Accessibility, obviously, you can't do much. I think people will have to, like, for example, he's in Auckland, so people from the down who are generally road running, they want to come to his place outside, experience trails. So I think it's also for people to kind of have that mindset of going out and trying something new, exploring. So that explorative thing is something that we as organizers, we can only try to market and make it a bit better, sounding more nicer to, okay, maybe come and try. But it's eventually up to people to come and say, okay, yeah, this is something I want to do, rather than calling other people and checking, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Only then I'll do this. So that community thing is, it can go two ways. One can be enabling, one can also be kind of sort of restricting you to one particular space only. So I think those aspects that you need to look at. And then I think distances wise, our races generally focus on shorter distances. But because elevation and all things are there, so some mid distances may feel like harder than regular road races or marathons and ultras also. So we have something for everyone, and we try to make things easier for people in terms of sort of logistics, safety, assuring them that yes, by setting examples that we've had two rescues also in our races. The same race when Ganesh was running back in 2023, we had someone who was brought down on a stretcher or something happened, and so we had teams in place. So it's just that those examples need to kind of go out and people need to trust that yes, this is an adventure, things can happen. But if I take care of certain things, I'll be back with a much richer experience rather than kind of, restricting to myself and saying, okay, no, I'm happy with this.
Yeah, right. Communication becomes really important, right? How you communicate, especially for a local race like yours, where you're trying to balance both. It shouldn't be dissuading for the elite runners as well as it should be welcoming for the new runners. Also, distance in trail running really is not important. It is so many other factors, and what the terrain is like. A 5 kilometer race may feel much harder than a 42 kilometer. And how do you communicate communicate that in a way that, that point gets across. So yeah, I think communication sort of becomes key in getting more people in, making it accessible enough, but not taking away from the safety of it. All of you spoke about how your initial experiences with, they sound brutal. It's like all of you were going to die and then you came back alive, and that sort of sparked something in you to keep continuing. So I would think that if there was one, trail running would be, an ideal sport to be called a soul sport. It's more about the experience itself than the spectatorship or the prize money, all of that. Do you think that trail running is fundamentally a values-driven sport? Like you bring so much of yourself and who you are and your life philosophy to the sport itself.
Yeah, I really agree with what you said, actually. I'll be quite honest. Only probably last year did I become a bit more competitive in terms of looking for, some results, maybe getting on the podium. But that is not the main driver for me, and certainly not the money aspect of it. For me, it's all about the experience. When I'm looking at races, when I'm looking at planning out my season, I'm looking for more than just an event. There's events. I'm looking for an experience. I want maybe a destination, a chance to learn about another culture. And above all, I want adventure. I want a challenge. And, I want to meet other people from the trail running community. And so I was so lucky last year to be able to have the opportunity to go to the Ladakh region and participate in the first edition of the Trail to Heaven, because honestly, if you were to give me one race that would excite me more than any other, it was that one. And it just so happened that I found out about it through another race. I was part of the wild horse race in Wales in May. And, that was the first race where I actually won. And it was very unexpected for me, but that was when I met Joao from 100, and he invited me to Brazil, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I really had no idea about 100 up until that point. And then we got talking about the Trail to Heaven in the Himalayas, and I had been lucky because I had been to the Himalayas and I had been to Everest Base Camp, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. So when he started talking about this race in the Himalayas, in this remote region, this incredibly beautiful place, where I would come to find out that people are incredibly welcoming and friendly. The culture is amazing. And it's going to be the first of its kind at this sort of altitude, never been done before. Probably, the biggest challenge you could think of in terms of trail running. I was like, I'm signing up, because that's for me exactly what I want. I want an experience. That's why I think I moved away from road marathons. Like, each to their own, but it's not necessarily what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to run a marathon in a city with concrete and blocks. I want to go up into the mountains. Like when I was up in some of those areas in Ladakh, I was just like in awe of the scenery, and I felt so lucky to be there, even though I was like suffering so much at some point. I remember like in the back half of the race, I would do like 10 steps when we were going up a hill, and then I'd just be on my hands and knees breathing, thinking, how am I going to finish it? But I could still take time to appreciate where I was, and, what an amazing adventure and experience. So I think I agree so much with what you said. So that's really how I choose my races now, is what is it going to offer me? How am I going to look back on this? Is it going to be something that, gives me this incredible life experience? So very thankful for Trail to Heaven and that opportunity, because that's been the biggest challenge, as I've said, for me, but the most rewarding for sure.
How do you, Ganeshana, how do you choose your races when you decide on a race calendar for a year? Is it very event based, or is it, do you, as and when it comes, or is there method to your madness as well?
I think there is method to my madness. From my perspective, there is method, but from others, there might not be. That's why it's madness, I guess. So, well, for me, I have to balance between, familial obligations and running and trail running. And it's almost never an event driven thing. Like it's not the name of an event or how popular it is. It's what I would get to see and what I would get to experience has always, that's why I got into trail running, and that's what is keeping me going. I would, agree with everything Damien said about it. It's about seeing the places, seeing the people, seeing new cultures, and meeting new people. I've learned things from almost every runner I have met in the trails. Even beginners and experienced people, they've got different perspectives that I've taken things from, molded it to my own outlook in life. I think when I look at races, even though it might have been really good, really wonderful races, if I've done it a couple of times, I usually don't go to it because I try to look for other places to go run, unless it's really nearby, right? Then there's no reason to miss it. They're doing all the effort, and you get to meet all your friends, and it's just there. But other than that, it's about, yeah, like vacation, like planning a vacation and going and running there. So I keep thinking about, like, I've never been to China, so I want to go run in some race in China. And definitely, thanks, Damien, because from hearing you talk about the previous topic, all I heard was you welcoming us to New Zealand.
100%, of course,
And,
anytime.
like the beach spot and the trails and the walks and the coffee, the cafe and the beer. Yeah,
You're welcome
and
anytime,
it's all
anytime.
listed, all of these points. So basically, I would like to go to Australia. I'd like to go to New Zealand. I'd like to go. There are so many places in Europe that they have all this like really well established networks, and you can just go run. And Damien mentioned EBC. I haven't been to EBC, and that's one of the things that I wanted to go run. Do like a solo run of EBC kind of thing, because there is enough spots there that you can get support. And so if you pick the right time, you can just go do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's driven based on the place, the experience, and the people.
Right. Right. Like Damien, you spoke about, the previous topic, and trail running is so much about an internal dialogue, right? It's not a team sport. You're running on your own. It's also not a spectator sport. It's a participator sport. So for trail running, especially, you are long stretches of time, you're by yourself, you're in your head, and, you're just like tuning into yourself. What are the core values for you as a person that help you? Like we spoke about it being a values-driven sport, right? So what do you think are your 3 core values that make you perform well in that sport?
Yeah, that's really a tough question, and I have been asked this question several times. What drives you? And I'm yet to really come up with the answer that I think describes it best. But I would say you're absolutely right. You're out there sometimes for hours by yourself, and your mind can go to some weird places. And when you're hallucinating on the second night, you really start to question everything. But I'm not going to lie, I sort of crave that a little bit. And Ganesh mentioned that it's a chance for him to recharge his batteries. And I'm exactly the same. I really do like getting out and being by myself in nature. I'm not scared of that, and I'm actually searching for that. I would say one of my core values that helps me succeed as a trail runner is that I'm stubborn to a fault. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I will really put myself through some pain to do it. So I'm very stubborn. I'm very adventurous. I've always loved adventure. I've always loved the challenge. So, being stubborn, being adventurous, 2 very important things for trail running. And also, I would say I'm very fortunate because, as you said, it is a participant sport, but I have an incredible community behind me. At every race I've been at, I can really feel the support I have. I might not be getting messages, but I know they're following along. In Wales, I had a huge community. In Trail to Heaven, I know they were messaging people trying to find out more information, and the same in Brazil. So, I'm always someone that remembers my family and friends back home supporting me while I'm running. So, to have that stubbornness, that kind of adventurous attitude, but also, having that incredible community of friends and family behind me that support me. And I even have a little screensaver that says, remember all the support back home. And I really think that drives me, not to disappoint them, But it seems to give me more energy when I'm really going through, say, a low patch.
Is that true for you? Do you feel the same way, Ganeshana, that you bring a lot of yourself to the sport, and the how you perform is it's more like an internal motivation. There's nothing outside to sort of push you other than the community, which is very far away from where you are actually performing. So, what are the values that your personality that you bring to the sport, which sort of helps you perform?
I think the part where Damien was talking about seeking adventure is yeah, that's a key value for me. I feel free when I'm out there in the forest, in the mountains. When we go see scenic things, people, we can just take a car and go stop by and like stop by at a viewpoint and see the scenery. But it's not as rewarding as when you are, you climbed the mountain and it was really hard and you are out of breath and you've been sweating for a couple of hours and you see this whole scenery open up when you get to the top. I think the reward there is so much more. I feel I am not so I'm an atheist now, maybe a little bit agnostic, but I feel this is kind of like a spiritual connection. I just feel happy when I'm out there. The community aspect of things. For me, it's not about performing as much. There was a time when I had won podiums back to back in some small races, and all my friends were like, "Okay, you need to bring back the trophy." And I had to like there was this one race I ran with that in my mind, and I realized I'm not enjoying the race, and so I've got to the stage where I know I might be able to win the race, might not. It depends on who else is there at the race, right? So I don't have to win the race. I just have to do it well. That's my mindset now, and I keep that. I have to reinforce it sometimes. But
Right.
I
So what I'm hearing all of you saying is that if you don't go for the win, you actually win, right? Like if you're running for joy, that's when you're actually going to be fast and you'll actually make it to the podium. Because if you're going for the win, you're under so much pressure that you're not
I mean,
enjoying the run itself.
you might win it and not enjoy it, right? The
Right.
second place finisher might have enjoyed it a lot more than you might have won it. And like you said, money is not the reason that like Damien and I are in the race, and most trail races don't have any. So it's the experience that's the reward that we are going after. And so what if I'm not on the podium, and what if I'm like a third place versus first place, and if I get to experience it. For me, it's capturing what I see and sharing it with my friends and inviting them by showing these exciting clips here and there to come into this community. I think that's one of the things. Like I love taking pictures and videos, and now I've started doing that on the race, on all races and all. So yeah, so like I think enjoying like seeking adventures, appreciating the beauty, and just feeling the freedom of being out there with no other obligations. There's nothing else. Like you are not disturbing anybody else at that point anymore, and it's just nature, and you're out there enjoying it. And I like the aspect of the community. Like whenever you meet trail runners, it seems like the bond is a little stronger than others. I haven't been with other sports as much, but I there isn't as much the competitive aspect. It is, I think people are always like welcoming, like when you share information about like their home territory, like they'll always welcome you, like, come run at my place, like come check this out. I would love to, show you around. And I've seen many places just like that, and made friends along the way, and that's been very rewarding too.
Right. So Chetan, as a race organizer, as a runner, you can be free and you can go there for adventure. But as a race organizer, you have to be a little bit more meticulous, think about the safety, and monies are involved, right? We for runners, it's not so important because it is about the satisfaction and the experience itself. But given that, trail running anyway does not have too much funds coming its way, and all the global races are getting all the attention and the money, how hard is it to keep the local trail running scene alive?
I think it depends a lot on, the whole community, how they kind of come out and support and be part of the initiative. I think it's people that grow the events rather than brands growing the event or money being poured in. So, your race will get popular, you will get more the right way to go about it is, more people coming in experiencing. And I think that's also one of the anchor points and principles that I would have as an organizer, going out and let's say seeking more events or more routes or something. I want to create a nice, good platform, an enabling platform for people to come. What Damien and Ganesh are talking about exactly, just be themselves, enjoy. And when they have a good experience, and when you're going out to these amazing natural spaces, which barely anyone goes to, and you kind of come back with the experiences you share, you become the true ambassador of the sport, right? So for us, I think as organizers, rather than I don't know how others think about it, but I've never thought of how the money comes and then how the event happens. That has never happened. It has been, okay, I've come across something amazing. Let's try to do this. Let's try to get the people involved. Let's try to get the community involved. If runners like it, it grows over the years, and then yeah, maybe brands and sponsors and all of those things can happen. I don't think trail running can go that way, the road racing way or any other commercial way where they eventually it grows in years to come. You can see brands coming up, like 100 is now having its own championship, its own point system. They're also expanding, but the experiences on the ground have to be keeping in mind what will really stand out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I hear runners, and so money is not important. I understand and the experiences, but I hear all the runners, being really scared of DNFs. Do you think that's true? And like, what are some of your race fears?
Well, I have never actually DNF, so I'm not really speaking from experience, and I'm not saying that to like gloat or anything. Actually, I feel like I've missed out so far on that experience, and maybe, I haven't pushed myself as hard as I should, because I think that is a part of the journey when you're a trail runner. Inevitably, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I would say for a long time, I was just, wanting to finish. But in the last year, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't become more competitive with some of the results I've had. And I have a race coming up in 2 weeks, actually, and it's a 100-mile race. And I plan to really push myself as hard as I can. And I think this is the first time I can genuinely say that, there is a potential to DNF, because I'm going to go out harder than I ever have before. And whether or not I can sustain that, we'll find out. But I think that's not really a fear for me to DNF. And there's no real fear when I go into a race. I think there's always a little bit of nervous excitement. But the fear of DNFing is not really, it's not really there for me. I guess my fear going into a race is that I don't put the performance in that I'm proud of, like I go into these races, of course, we talked about for the experience, we've spoken about that, but I also go in there to do myself proud. I've worked hard to get to the start line, and it's not necessarily finishing in a certain time or getting a podium, but it's pushing myself. Okay, like I want to challenge myself, so I want to make sure that I push myself. I'm not just there going through the motions. I want to be sitting on the couch after the race finishes, looking back, going, yeah, I gave it my everything, and I'm really proud of what I did. So I have not had the DNF yet, but I know that it will be happening in the future, and I'll welcome it. That means I push myself to the brink, as Ganesh did in Trail to Heaven. So yeah, bring it on.
Ganesh, is that your experience too? Because I hear a lot of learners, saying, "Oh, I don't want to do this," because especially beginners, right, who may be probably coming from road and getting into trail running, being really scared of, "Oh, I'm not going to finish."
And I think I feel like there are some runners whose the medal is what they really crave for. They want to be able to say that they finished something. But for me, it's the experience, and I want to be able to give my best, like what Damien was saying. I don't think I've ever gone to a race where I've DNF'd a few times, but I've never been worried about a DNF or even cutoff time or anything, right? I just want to go. And I never really cared about the medal in the end, right? It's like I've got all the pictures that I want on the way, and that's the experience that I was in. So, but I know what you're saying. I know people, like, to the extent that there are some people who will take shortcuts to get to the finish line, which doesn't make sense to me. Like, why sign up for a race and go do that? And if you're not going to be true to yourself, and if this is what you wanted to do, then you should, try and do it. And if you can't do it, then come back, train more, and try to see what we can do better, and come back. Right? Like better gear, whatever. Yeah. So I don't think DNFs ever worried me.
Right.
No, and
Yeah.
I think if they were to worry us, we probably wouldn't have signed up for Trail to Heaven because I was like 100, well, not like I was, I guess 50-50 if I would be able to finish it. I really had no idea going into it, but it excited me. And I understand why some people had some fears about not finishing. And, hopefully it's not because they'll feel shame or something like that. But, I know if my friend has a DNF, we'll have a laugh about it. It wasn't their day, but we'll have a beer afterwards and we joke about it because at the end of the day, it's low stakes. We're privileged to be able to do this running thing, privileged to be able to enter these races. Many people can't. So at the end of the day, it's all part of the journey. And, any scary race, I'm all for it. I'll sign up. Just tell me where to.
It's interesting that you bring up Ladakh Trail to Heaven because I understand that this year you're changing the cutoff times. Is the time being revised for 100 miles?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, all the categories, I mean, we didn't have the 100 last year, but the 36 hours will go up to 42. And
Mhm.
some of the internal cutoffs will kind of go ahead also. That then to keep that shift in time in mind, we are now starting the race at night, which is 10 p.m. So
Okay.
yeah, so the
Oh.
initial section happens at the night, and then the second night again happens around the second pass. So we are planned in a way where all the major stream and river crossings are happening in the day.
Mhm.
You see what you're going through basically. So at least so in reason so again, around all of this, the safety would be the number one sort of a thing to design around. Okay, what options should we work with? So yeah, that has happened.
Right. And in the local races as well, like, as an organizer, how do you, for road, it's pretty straightforward what cutoffs are, etc. But for each trail, you have to figure out the terrain, the difficulty, and then come up with cutoff times that most people can make, right? So how do you sort of make that decision? Like we spoke about newcomers being welcomed, right? So one of the this is also an important factor. If you don't finish your first race, you're like, okay, maybe this is not for me, even though the experience was great. So how do you sort of balance all of these factors and look at cutoff times?
I think it's a balance that you have to maintain. Like you have to come up with things that a framework where people can know that it's possible and it's within their capacity to do it. But also at the same time you have to maintain that element of racing. Otherwise it's just going to be an easy hike, right? You can do the trail. If I don't put a time, you can take your own sweet time and do it as a hike yourself. Then you don't need to. So the whole idea of having a trail run is to bring in some factors which make it more challenging so you can push yourself, you can have that experience. So I think it's about, for us at least, putting ourselves in the shoes. So when you recce, you try to understand all of those things, and most of my recce's have been self-supported, carrying a huge backpack going out, because I know if I'm going somewhere, I'll probably have to camp somewhere and then come out the next two days after. So we have all of those in mind, and then I try to do some calculations based on that, and then also do it once again with less load or more as a runner, to try and understand, put myself in their shoes to see, okay, yeah, what would be nicer. And I think that has kind of worked quite well. But yeah, it's a different thing, because I think ultras is a very different thing, because ultras by itself, because the distance and the time is so kind of spread out, that the beauty is that anything can happen. So that is why ultras are kind of exciting for people to kind of do as an adventure, because I don't think there'll be any athlete going into a race saying, I'm 100% sure I'm going to finish this. I think there will always be that some element in the mind, something can go wrong. Maybe I twist my ankle 10 kilometers into the race and then things are over. Maybe you are very, very well prepared in terms of your volume and everything else, but something can come up. Maybe a rock comes on from the hill or something, it stops you, maybe something happens. So you don't know about all of those things. So I've seen some people wear the DNF badge very proudly. Like they take it, okay, yeah, I've kind of met my match and I'll come back stronger. And, this was an amazing one to do. And others were kind of new to this, were coming from road, were very used to, as, Ganesh was saying, they want the medals and the certificates and for the social media, they want to, it's like some sort of a recognition that they've kind of got, they expect the same when they come to trails. Okay, and I want to show that I've done something different and stuff. And when that doesn't happen, it doesn't go well with some of the people. So they're like, okay, they try to negotiate their way out of it. Can I at least get something? I can mention this on my certificate that I have reached this point or something. And I said, okay, rules are same for everyone. So I think that mindset kind of changes but they're all kinds of people. So I think we'll come across both who would be taking it as a true adventure. Some don't even care about social media. Some people are like, I'm not doing this for that. Like Rao, for example. He doesn't care about all this.
Yeah, we would hope that he does some of it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a different sort of a world out there. We are trying to encourage more people to come into it, and then make sure that the expectations are not, they're not overly pampered and stuff. They have to accept the reality. You're not, like we can't change the rules for gear and stuff just because you're new to trail running. It's even more important because you're new to it, so you have to understand the risk and why we're recommending something, right? So it has to be a balance. Yeah.
Talking about local races and these decisions that you have to make, I believe that we're coming up with the Summit Slam. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? What was the idea behind it? How do you think that's going to help local races, and why do we want that in our calendar?
I mean, I think one of the we have 3 races on the calendar. They are kind of spread out in the year, and we have seen some people do 2, some people do 1, some thinking about 3, and also I said, okay, maybe if there's like an enabling platform that kind of attracts them interests them to do all the 3, and maybe with some rewards or something that kind of says that yes, so see, some sort of recognition everyone seeks. Like you would want to get something if you're making that extra effort. So let's try to give them something that they are kind of thinking for, or at least what we can give from our side, and then see. Plus also kind of things happening in the together on the calendar and being done by the same people also kind of brings out your other races and the terrain and all the elements better. You can have a better comparison. You can have more exciting content around it, and it kind of grows the whole trail running scene more rather than just saying, okay, no, we want to make money out of it. That's not the case. It's we want to make an enabling environment, and maybe this happens with, let's say, other races, or it kind of grows as a series. Then you can have your India sort of specific, let's say, championship or point system where other organizers are coming in together and collaborating and kind of having a better creating a better platform for people to experience more. So yeah, we are already in talks about that. We're hoping to have an India sort of a representation for trail running, our own body, our own charter. Let's see how that goes. But we want to head in that direction. So all of this is aimed at just getting the buzz more out there, creating kind of more excitement around the whole scene. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and what that does to the community and stuff, right? Maybe Damien can come run one of our races because he's not experienced any of those trails. So
I would love to.
It'll be a completely different part of the Himalayas you experience. Very green.
Yeah.
Very green,
not so high on yeah.
No, of course. I love the sound of the vision, and I think that's an amazing thing that you're doing, and it'll hopefully give so many people the opportunity to get involved. And yeah, of course, that I'd happily be there. So let's talk.
Yeah, and if Ganesh and you're not shifting to US by then, we'd love to have you on the trails back as well. I think you've done all 3. Have you done all 3 or 2?
No, I've only done 1. I've only done Indrahar. I wanted to set in Dome, but again, logistical issues didn't get to do it. But yeah, I want to do all 3 for sure.
Yeah. Maybe this year is the
beautiful.
year if you're not moving.
Yeah. And I mean, either way, I would plan to come to it at some point. Sorry.
Yeah, even if he moves, he has to come back for all this. He'll be shuffling back,
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, so in the interest of time, just because we're crossing just about closing in on 2 hours, I just wanted to get a sense from you guys, for anyone who's signing up for 2026 Ladakh Trail to Heaven, what would your cautionary tale for them be? And who do you think it's for, and who should sign up?
Well, I think if you want to challenge yourself, then I think there's no better place to do it than at the Trail to Heaven race. But I really think it's so much more than that. And I think that we've spoken about this at length in this interview, but I really think it's not just an event, it's an experience. The altitude is something unlike I've ever experienced before, and it can be quite a humbling thing. But what I will say, whether you finished it within the cutoff time or you had a DNF, I know Ganesh would say the same, that it really gives you resilience. And, when I was doing races later in the year, like Brazil, for example, I had this different sort of mental strength that I didn't have before I did the Trail to Heaven, because it made me feel a lot more capable, and it gave me this resilience that I really could tackle anything in the trail running scene. So I think if you want to test yourself, if you want to challenge yourself, then this race is for you. But more than that, I think if you want to visit an incredibly beautiful area, you want to see something, I think, unlike anywhere else in the world, then you should sign up and be prepared. A cautionary thing is listen to the team on the ground when it comes to acclimatization. It's no joke. If you can go there even earlier than the mandatory 7 days, I think do that 2 weeks, 3 weeks even, because the longer you give yourself there, ultimately, let's not say easy, but it will make things maybe a little bit more tolerable in the race when it comes to altitude. But yeah, I can't speak highly enough of that race, and I'm so thankful, as I said, to have been a part of that. Thanks to Boots and Crampons, to all the Sherpas 100. I will be back. I might not be back in 2026, but I will definitely be back.
People should sign up for themselves. What do you want them to know before they do?
Neeti, you kind of broke up a little bit, but I think I got the gist. Yeah, so I think Damien spoke what I had in mind. It's for me, yeah, I will come back. I really appreciated all the runners, and the organizing team was superb. I loved how they had prepared us through the acclimatization phase, and how they had planned for the different levels of things for us to get used to. Also, even gave us an idea of what the food was going to be like, and what support was going to be like, and everything. I think I felt really pampered with all that in a race, right? Because normally you just show up at the race, collect the bib, show up early the next morning, and you're off. But this, I think, with the whole acclimatization thing, it was a whole. It was an experience. It was a cultural experience. Even though I'm from India, it was a cultural experience for me also. So I think if you're looking for a challenge and 100-mile true trail race to run in the Himalayas, there's definitely. I don't think. I think it's a no-brainer to go sign up for this. And the cautionary things is you always have to worry about and be prepared for for the eventualities, right? Like for the things that you might face. So you have to think through them. You have to think through the possible altitude issues. You have to think through the cold and the heat and the water crossings. Yes, but I think that's with all the races, but that's also what makes it exciting for us to come try it. I'll come to it again.
Absolutely. Sure. Chetan, any last words from you on Summit Slam or on the Ladakh Trail to Heaven 2026?
No, nothing. I think this is going to be an exciting year. We have hopefully a bigger race at Ladakh, and Summit Slam also is, I think, catching up excitement. We have a lot more people signing up now for all the 3 events, and I think we're going to have good numbers. So I think for the trail running scene in India and overall, I think it's a good thing for the whole community. And I hope that these people become the ambassadors for the sport, and we have the right stories and the right exciting things to share ahead. Ladakh, again, I think it's going to be an experience of a lifetime for a lot of people who are coming there. Some of them, I would say, even those who have been to Ladakh and who have raced on the roads, this is going to be something absolutely different. And again, I think it depends on what kind of an adventure, open mindset you have of experiencing different things. And if this is what excites you, you'll see nooks and corners and places in Ladakh that a lot of people never see. So yeah, hope to see what 2026 really starting from June, how that goes up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's looking like a year of trail running for us at least. Like, there are exciting things lined up, and I'm excited to see how the community comes together, what happens with the new ideas that we've had, and hopefully all of them will work out. And even Ladakh, we've added more distances, so it's possibly more accessible to a lot more people. So everyone's not 100 miler, but 100 kilometers is more accessible than 100 mile. 42 is more accessible. So yeah, hopefully get to see a variety of runners come in. Thank you guys so much for taking so much time out and sharing your thoughts and, just being here and speaking about your experiences. I myself have, taken a lot from this. Looking forward to bumping into you guys on some trails.
Yeah.
New Zealand to run, I'll take you up on that offer for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Yeah, you are all welcome in New Zealand anytime. And it was really nice to see all of you again. And I'm sure I'll pass again in the future. I wish you all the best with the trail running and everything. Yeah, that was a really nice catch up. Thank you.
Same here. Thanks, Ganesh.
All right. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Hey, and all the best for your upcoming race, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Is there anywhere we can follow along?
They have like a live, they do have some sort of live tracking. If you look up, it's Tarawera, it's UTMB Tarawera. If you just look up New Zealand, it will pop up. It's the biggest race in New Zealand. But yeah, you should come over here and do it one time. It's a really amazing race. They have a lot of cultural events and it's really well done and it's a beautiful area. So Ganesh, you can come over here and you can do the miler with me next year.
Yeah. Well, one of these years, in the next couple of years.
You all have my number anyway, so you're welcome anytime.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
Guys.